Natalie Chen pressed her phone against her ear, feeling the weight of her mother's words crushing down on her shoulders. The bookstore café around her buzzed with the soft chatter of afternoon customers, but all she could hear was the disappointment in Linda Chen's voice asking the same questions she had asked every week for the past 6 months. Natalie. Sweetheart, Jessica's engagement party is next Saturday. You are bringing someone, right? Everyone will be there. Your aunts keep asking about you. They worry you work too much and never make time for relationships. Natalie stared out the rain-streaked window, watching Seattle's gray sky mirror her mood. At 28, she had built a successful career as a graphic designer at a boutique agency, created a cozy apartment filled with plants and art, and cultivated a life she genuinely enjoyed. But to her family, none of that mattered as much as whether she had someone to bring to family gatherings. Her younger sister Jessica, only 25, was marrying her college sweetheart. The engagement party would be filled with relatives comparing the two sisters, praising Jessica's choices while wondering what was wrong with Natalie. She could already hear the whispered conversations and see the pitying glances. Before her brain could stop her mouth, "Actually, Mom, yes. I have been seeing someone. His name is Trevor. We have been together for a few months now." I was waiting to be sure before mentioning it. The silence on the other end lasted only a heartbeat before her mother erupted in excited questions. "What does he do? How did you meet? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Oh, Natalie, your grandmother will be so happy. She worries about you constantly." Natalie felt her stomach twist into knots as she invented details. Trevor worked in business. They met through mutual friends. He was kind and thoughtful. Each lie built upon the last until she had constructed an entire fictional relationship. When she finally ended the call, promising her mother that Trevor would absolutely be at the party, Natalie dropped her head into her hands. What had she done? She had just promised to bring an imaginary boyfriend to meet her entire extended family. Her grandmother Margaret would be there, the woman who had helped raise her and Aunt Susan, her father Robert, who had an uncanny ability to spot dishonesty. This was going to be a disaster, an unexpected solution. I apologize for interrupting, but I could not help overhearing your situation. Natalie looked up sharply to find a man standing beside her table. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with sandy brown hair slightly damp from the rain and warm hazel eyes that held both intelligence and kindness. He wore dark jeans and a gray Henley shirt under a leather jacket. Everything about him seemed casual, yet somehow polished. "Oh no, was I that loud?" Natalie felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I am so sorry. That was a private conversation I should not have been having in public." The stranger smiled gently. "Please do not apologize. We all face family pressure sometimes. My name is Trevor Hayes, and I think I might have a solution to your problem."
Natalie
blinked in shock. "Your name is actually Trevor? You have to be joking." "I promise, I am not." He gestured to the empty chair across from her. "May I sit down? I know this will sound strange, but I have a proposal that could help both of us." Every reasonable instinct told Natalie to politely decline and leave immediately. Accepting help from a stranger who conveniently had the same name as her fictional boyfriend seemed too bizarre to be anything but dangerous. But something in Trevor's expression stopped her. There was no mockery there, no threat. Just genuine understanding and perhaps a hint of loneliness that resonated with her own. 5 minutes, she agreed cautiously. "You have 5 minutes to explain this proposal." The agreement. Trevor settled into the chair and leaned forward slightly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I overheard you tell your mother about your boyfriend Trevor. I understand family expectations more than you might think. Here is what I am suggesting. I will be your boyfriend for this engagement party. We will spend the next week getting to know each other, creating a believable backstory, and preparing. I will attend the party, be charming and appropriate, and then we will part ways. No complications, no strings attached." Natalie studied him carefully. Why would you possibly want to do this? What could you possibly get out of pretending to be my boyfriend for a family party full of strangers? For a moment, something flickered across Trevor's face. Sadness, maybe, or weariness. Let us just say, I could use a break from my own life. Sometimes being someone else for a day is easier than being yourself. And honestly, you seem like a decent person in an unfortunate situation. Consider it a random act of kindness. This is completely insane, Natalie said. But even as she spoke, she felt herself considering it. I do not know anything about you. You could be anyone. This could be some elaborate scheme. Trevor pulled out his wallet and handed her his driver's license. Trevor Daniel Hayes, born March 15th. Seattle resident. I work in technology consulting. Here is my business card. You can look me up online. I will give you my phone number and the name of my employer. Do your research. If anything seems suspicious, we call it off. But Natalie, I am offering you a legitimate solution to your problem. The foundation Natalie held his driver's license. Studying the photo that matched the man sitting across from her, against all logic, she found herself wanting to trust him. If we do this, we do it properly. My grandmother will be there. She practically raised me and my sister. I will not have her fooled by some half-hearted act. If you are going to be my boyfriend, you need to be completely convincing. I would not offer if I was not committed to doing it right, Trevor replied seriously. Tell me about your grandmother. Tell me about your family. We have a week to become a couple that people will believe in. They spent the next 3 hours in that cafe as rain continued to fall outside. Trevor asked thoughtful questions about Natalie's childhood, her relationship with her sister, her parents' expectations, and her career. He listened intently when she talked about her grandmother, Margaret's wisdom and strength, how the older woman had stepped in when both parents worked long hours, providing stability and unconditional love in turn. Trevor shared carefully selected pieces of his own life. He spoke about growing up in the Pacific Northwest, his love of hiking and photography, his work in the tech industry. He painted a picture of someone successful but grounded, ambitious but not consumed by work. They crafted their relationship story together. They had met 4 months ago at a design conference where Trevor's company was showcasing new software. He had approached her during a networking session, drawn by her insights during a panel discussion. Their first date had been at a small Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill. They bonded over shared interests in art, books, and terrible cooking skills. As they talked, Natalie found herself genuinely enjoying Trevor's company. He had a quick wit that made her laugh, and when he listened to her stories, she felt truly heard. There was something refreshing about his directness. The way he did not try to impress her, but simply engaged with honest interest. We should exchange numbers, Trevor said, as the cafe began preparing to close. We need to meet several times this week. Dinner tomorrow night. Maybe a walk through Pike Place Market this weekend. We should be seen together. Make this feel authentic. Natalie saved his contact information. Still half convinced she would wake up and discover this entire encounter had been a stress-induced dream. Trevor, why are you really doing this? The kindness explanation seems too simple. He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the darkening sky. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight of unspoken truth. Because sometimes everyone needs someone to see them differently than the world sees them. And because, Natalie Chen, you seem like someone worth getting to know, even under unusual circumstances. The first real meeting as Natalie walked home through the rainy Seattle streets, umbrella in hand, she could not shake the feeling that accepting Trevor Hayes' help was going to change everything. She told herself this was simply a practical solution to an embarrassing problem. In a week, she would attend her sister's engagement party with a presentable, charming man on her arm. Her family would be satisfied. The questions would stop, and then she and Trevor would go their separate ways, back to their individual lives. But even as she tried to convince herself of this neat narrative, Natalie felt something stirring in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or the beginning of something she had not felt in years. The possibility that sometimes the most unexpected solutions lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Trevor, thank you for trusting a stranger with your family's secret. I promise I will not let you down. Looking forward to our first official date tomorrow night? Natalie smiled despite her lingering doubts and typed back, thank you for the most bizarre but potentially brilliant solution. See you tomorrow. She did not know yet that Trevor Hayes was hiding secrets of his own. She did not know that his offer of help came from a place of deep, personal need for escape. And she certainly did not know that their pretend relationship would become the most real thing either of them had experienced in years. All she knew was that for the first time in months, she felt something other than dread about her sister's engagement party. And that was enough for now. Natalie arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, a nervous habit she had never been able to break. The small Italian bistro in Capitol Hill glowed warmly against the evening darkness. Its windows fogged with heat and the steam from countless plates of pasta. She had chosen a simple navy dress and her favorite leather jacket, wanting to look nice without appearing like she was trying too hard. When Trevor walked through the door at exactly 7 o'clock, Natalie felt her breath catch slightly. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking effortlessly put together. But it was the genuine smile that spread across his face when he spotted her that made her heart skip unexpectedly. "You look lovely," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Have you been waiting long?" "Just a few minutes," Natalie replied, grateful that the dim lighting might hide the slight flush in her cheeks. "I have a terrible habit of being early to everything. That makes two of us. I was circling the block for 10 minutes, so I would not seem overeager." Trevor's confession made them both laugh. Breaking the initial tension, the waiter appeared with menus, and they ordered wine and appetizers. As they settled into conversation, Natalie was struck by how natural everything felt. This was supposed to be a strategic planning session, a business arrangement to prepare for the engagement party. Instead, it felt remarkably like an actual first date. "Tell me more about your work," Trevor said after they had ordered their main courses. "You mentioned graphic design, but what kind of projects do you love most?" Natalie found herself opening up in ways she rarely did, even with friends. She talked about her passion for branding small businesses, how she loved helping people visualize their dreams. She described her favorite project: designing the complete identity for a local bookstore owned by an elderly couple who had saved for decades to open their shop. Trevor listened with complete attention, asking insightful questions that showed he genuinely understood creative work. When she apologized for talking too much, he shook his head firmly. "Never apologize for being passionate about something meaningful. Your work matters, Natalie. Not everyone gets to say that." There was something in his tone that made her curious. "What about you? You said technology consulting, but you have not really explained what that means." Trevor took a sip of wine, and for just a moment Natalie saw hesitation cross his features. "I work with companies to improve their technical infrastructure and digital presence. It pays well, keeps me busy. The work is fine." "Fine?" Natalie pressed gently. "That does not sound like passion talking." "It's complicated," Trevor said, then seemed to catch himself. "But tonight is about you, and making sure I know enough to convince your family we are genuine. Tell me about your sister Jessica. What is she like?" Natalie recognized the deflection but allowed it, sensing Trevor had his own reasons for privacy. She spent the next hour painting a picture of her family dynamics. Jessica was outgoing and confident, the golden child who had always known exactly what she wanted. Their mother Linda meant well, but showed love through worry and constant involvement in her daughters' lives. Their father Robert was quieter, more observant, the one who would actually see through a poorly constructed lie. "Your grandmother sounds like the real challenge," Trevor observed. "You talk about her differently than the others." "Margaret Chen is the wisest person I know," Natalie said softly. "She came to America with almost nothing, worked 2 jobs to support her family, and raised me and Jessica when our parents were building their careers. She can read people better than anyone. If she suspects we are lying, the whole thing falls apart." Trevor reached across the table, his hand covering hers in a gesture that felt both practiced and genuinely comforting. "Then we make sure she has no reason to suspect. We make this so real that even we start to believe it." His hand was warm, and Natalie found herself not pulling away. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, connected across the table in the flickering candlelight, building a believable story over the next 3 days. Natalie and Trevor met every evening. They walked through Pike Place Market on Wednesday, sharing samples of cheese and chocolate while inventing memories of their first kiss near the flower stands. They spent Thursday evening at a small art gallery opening. Standing close together as they critiqued paintings and sculptures, learning how to naturally touch and interact like a real couple, Friday found them at Trevor's suggestion. Hiking one of the easier trails outside the city, the Pacific Northwest spring was beginning to show itself in bursts of wildflowers and brilliant green ferns. As they walked, conversation flowed easily between comfortable silence and animated discussion. "You need to know my tells," Natalie said, as they paused near a viewpoint overlooking the valley. "When I am nervous, I play with my earring. When I am lying, I cannot maintain eye contact. When I am truly happy, I get this little crinkle by my left eye." Trevor studied her face carefully. "Show me the happy crinkle. I cannot just make it happen," Natalie laughed. "It has to be genuine, and I will have to work harder to make you genuinely happy this week," Trevor said with a smile that made that exact crinkle appear without Natalie realizing it. He pointed it out gently, and she felt herself blushing again. This was happening too often around Trevor. These moments where the line between pretend and real blurred dangerously. "Your turn," she said, needing to shift focus. "What are your tells?" Trevor considered this seriously. "I have trained myself not to have obvious tells in professional settings. But when I am uncomfortable, I tend to run my hand through my hair. When something genuinely amuses me versus polite laughter, I smile with my eyes first. And when I am avoiding a topic, I deflect with questions about the other person. Like you did at dinner when I asked about your work," Natalie observed quietly. Trevor met her gaze steadily. "Yes, like that. Some parts of my life are complicated, Natalie. Can we leave it at that for now?" She wanted to push, sensing there was more to Trevor Hayes than he was revealing. But they had an agreement. This was temporary, a performance with a clear end date. Digging into his secrets was not part of the arrangement. "Fair enough," she agreed. "But you should know my father will ask about your career. He is going to want specifics." "I can handle your father's questions," Trevor assured her. "Trust me on that." The engagement party arrived Saturday evening, arrived faster than Natalie expected. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the soft coral dress she had chosen for the party. Her hands trembled slightly as she applied lipstick, nerves and anticipation mixing into a cocktail of emotions. She could not quite name the past week with Trevor had been unexpected in every way. What began as a transactional arrangement had evolved into something that felt increasingly real. She found herself thinking about him during work, smiling at his text messages, feeling genuine disappointment when their evening meetings ended. The doorbell rang precisely on time. Natalie took a deep breath, grabbed her clutch, and opened the door. Trevor stood there looking absolutely devastating in a tailored charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. He held a bouquet of white roses in one hand and a smaller bouquet of pink carnations in the other. His eyes widened appreciatively when he saw her. "Natalie, you look absolutely beautiful. You clean up pretty well yourself," she managed, accepting the white roses. "What are the carnations for?" "Your grandmother. You said pink carnations were her favorite? I thought it would be a nice touch. Show that I pay attention to what matters to you." The thoughtfulness of the gesture threatened to undo Natalie completely. This man who was supposed to be playing a role kept doing things that felt genuine and caring. How was she supposed to remember this was all pretend when he kept being so perfectly real? The drive to her parents' house in Bellevue passed in a blur of last-minute preparations and nervous energy. Trevor reached over and took her hand as they pulled into the driveway of the elegant colonial home where Natalie had grown up. "We have got this," he said confidently. "Just follow my lead and be yourself. Your family is going to love seeing you happy." Meeting the Chen family, the house was already filled with relatives when they arrived. Natalie could hear laughter and conversation flowing from the open living room. Her mother appeared almost immediately, face lighting up with excitement. "Natalie, and you must be Trevor." Linda Chen pulled them both into enthusiastic hugs. "Oh, it is so wonderful to finally meet you. Natalie has told us so much about you." Trevor smiled warmly, shaking her hand properly after the hug. "Mrs. Chen, it is a pleasure. Thank you for including me in this celebration. And these are for you." He handed her the pink carnations with practiced ease. Linda looked delighted. How did you know these were my favorite? Natalie mentioned it. She talks about her family often. Natalie watched her mother practically melt under Trevor's charm. Before she could fully process this, her father appeared, his expression more reserved and assessing. Robert Chen, he said, extending his hand. You are the mystery man we have been hearing about. Trevor shook his hand firmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Trevor Hayes, sir. I appreciate you welcoming me into your home. Technology consulting, Natalie mentioned. Robert's tone was casual, but Natalie recognized the interrogation beginning. Yes, sir. I work primarily with enterprise clients, helping them optimize their digital infrastructure and security protocols. It is technical work, but rewarding when you can help a company protect their data and improve efficiency. Robert nodded slowly, and Natalie saw him filing away information, looking for inconsistencies. Before he could ask another question, Jessica appeared with her fiancé Brandon. Natalie, you made it. Her sister hugged her tightly, then turned to Trevor with unconcealed curiosity. So this is the secret boyfriend. I am Jessica, and this is Brandon. The men shook hands, and Brandon immediately launched into conversation about hiking. Having noticed Trevor's mention of recent trail adventures, Jessica pulled Natalie aside slightly. He is gorgeous, she whispered. Where have you been hiding him? We have been taking things slow, Natalie replied, the practiced answer coming easily now. I wanted to be sure before introducing him to everyone. Well, I am just happy to see you happy. You have seemed different lately. Lighter somehow. Natalie felt a pang of guilt at her sister's genuine happiness for her. This lie was affecting more people than she had considered. Grandmother Margaret's test, the evening progressed smoothly. Trevor navigated the crowd of relatives with impressive ease, remembering names, asking appropriate questions, and staying close to Natalie with casual touches that sold their relationship perfectly. He laughed at Uncle Frank's terrible jokes, complimented Aunt Susan's cooking, and even engaged Natalie's teenage cousin in a discussion. It's about video game design. But the real test came when Grandmother Margaret arrived fashionably late, as was her tradition. The room quieted slightly as the matriarch made her entrance, elegant in a jade green dress that set off her silver hair beautifully. Grandmother. Natalie moved to greet her. Trevor followed closely. Margaret's dark eyes assessed Trevor immediately. The kind of look that seemed to see through surfaces, to truth beneath. So you are the young man who has captured my granddaughter's heart, Mrs. Chen. It is an honor to meet you. Trevor took her hand gently. Natalie speaks of you with such love and respect. These are for you, her favorite flowers, reminding me of someone who clearly shaped so much of who she is. Presented the carnations with such genuine warmth that even Natalie almost believed they were. Real Margaret accepted the flowers, but her eyes never left Trevor's face. Walk with me in the garden, young man. I want to know about the person who makes my Natalie smile the way she is smiling tonight. Natalie felt panic rise in her chest. Her grandmother alone with Trevor was not part of the plan. But Trevor squeezed her hand reassuringly and offered his arm to Margaret. It would be my pleasure. Natalie watched them disappear onto the back patio, her heart pounding. Through the windows, she could see them walking slowly among her mother's carefully tended rose bushes. Trevor was listening intently as Margaret spoke, occasionally responding with what appeared to be thoughtful comments. Your grandmother is giving him the test, Linda said, appearing beside Natalie with 2 glasses of wine. She did the same thing with Brandon. If Margaret approves, you know he is a good one. What if she does not approve? Natalie asked quietly. Then you will have your answer about whether he is right for you. Linda clinked her glass against Natalie's. But watching you two tonight, I've never seen you so comfortable with someone. The way he looks at you, sweetheart. That is not something you can fake. Natalie sipped her wine, those words settling uncomfortably in her chest. Her mother was right. The way Trevor looked at her, touched her, stayed close throughout the evening, felt genuine. But it was not real. They had an agreement. This was a performance. So why did it feel like so much more? The moment everything changed 20 minutes later, Trevor and Margaret returned from the garden. Her grandmother's expression was unreadable. But she patted Trevor's arm affectionately before moving to talk with other guests. Trevor came directly to Natalie, pulling her close in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "Your grandmother is remarkable. We had quite a conversation." "What did she say?" Natalie asked urgently. "She asked me what my intentions were toward you. She wanted to know if I understood how special you are, how much your family loves you, and whether I was prepared to honor that." Natalie's eyes widened. "What did you tell her?" Trevor looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I told her the truth. That you are extraordinary. That spending time with you has reminded me what it feels like to genuinely connect with someone. That your family's love for you is obvious and deserved." "Trevor," Natalie whispered, not sure what she wanted to say next. "She told me something else," he continued quietly. "She said she has watched you for years, always being what everyone needed, never asking for what you wanted. She said she sees something different in you now. Hope, she called it." Before Natalie could respond, Jessica called everyone together for toasts. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne, laughter, and celebration. Through it all, Trevor remained at her side as the perfect attentive boyfriend. As the party wound down and guests began leaving, Robert approached them again. "Trevor, a word before you go?" Natalie's father led them to his study, a room lined with books and family photos. He closed the door and turned to face them, his expression serious. "I am going to be direct because I respect you both too much for games. Trevor, I have spent the evening watching you with my daughter. You are either the most genuine man she has ever dated or the best actor I have ever seen. Which is it?" Natalie felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble, but Trevor did not hesitate. "Mr. Chen, I can only tell you that being with Natalie has been the most real thing in my life and longer than I care to admit. Your daughter is remarkable, and I count myself fortunate for every moment I spend with her." Robert studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "See that you remember that? She deserves someone who sees her value." As they drove home, Natalie was quiet, processing everything that had happened. The evening had been a complete success. Her family adored Trevor. Even her grandmother seemed to approve. They had pulled off the deception perfectly, so why did she feel like crying? Trevor walked her to her apartment door, and for a moment they stood in the hallway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Natalie said softly, "Better than I could have hoped. So were you." Trevor reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that felt devastatingly tender. "Natalie, I need to tell you something. What is it?" "This week, getting to know you tonight with your family, it has not felt like pretending, and I think you feel it too." Natalie's heart raced. She wanted to deny it, to protect herself, to remember their agreement. But standing there looking into Trevor's eyes, she could not lie. "I feel it too," she whispered. "But Trevor, we do not really know each other. This was supposed to be simple." "I know. And there are things about my life I have not told you. Things that complicate everything. But I cannot keep pretending that what I feel for you is not real." Before Natalie could respond, before she could think about all the reasons this was dangerous, Trevor kissed her. It was gentle and questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, she found herself kissing him back, her hands finding their way to his shoulders, his arms pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Natalie knew that everything had changed. This was no longer a simple arrangement. Whatever this was between them, it was real and complicated and absolutely terrifying. "I should go," Trevor said quietly, though he made no move to leave. "But Natalie, we need to talk." "Really talk? There are things you deserve to know about who I really am," she suggested. "Tomorrow," he agreed. "I will tell you everything." He kissed her forehead gently and left, leaving Natalie standing in her doorway, her fingers touching her lips, her heart full of hope and fear in equal measure. She did not know yet that tomorrow would bring revelations that would test everything between them. She did not know that Trevor Hayes was hiding a secret that would explain his mysterious offer and change how she saw everything. All she knew was that the man who had agreed to be her pretend boyfriend had somehow become the most real thing in her world. Natalie woke up Sunday morning with her lips still tingling from Trevor's kiss and her mind spinning with 1,000 questions. She reached for her phone, half expecting a message from him, but found nothing. The silence felt heavy with unspoken promises and the weight of his words from the night before. "There are things you deserve to know about who I really am." She made coffee and curled up on her couch, watching rain streak down the windows of her apartment. Seattle's perpetual gray sky matched her mood perfectly. Something had shifted fundamentally between them last night. What began as a convenient arrangement had transformed into something neither of them had anticipated. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. Trevor's name appeared on the screen. "Good morning. I know I said we would talk today, but something has come up at work that I need to handle. Can we meet for dinner instead? There is a place I want to take you. Somewhere I should have taken you from the beginning." Natalie felt disappointment wash over her, followed quickly by unease. His message felt different somehow. More formal, more distant than the man who had kissed her in the hallway just hours ago. "Of course. What time?" She typed back, "I will pick you up at 7. Dress nicely. And Natalie, please know that everything I said last night was true. You deserve honesty, and tonight you will get it." The cryptic nature of his response did nothing to calm her nerves. Natalie spent the day trying to distract herself with household chores and sketching ideas for a new client project. But her mind kept returning to Trevor. Who was he really? What secrets had he been keeping? And why did she feel like the truth might shatter whatever fragile connection they had built? An unexpected discovery around 3 in the afternoon, Natalie's phone rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, big sister. Thank you again for coming last night. Brandon and I were just looking through photos from the party, and I wanted to send you some of you and Trevor. You two look so happy together. Thanks, Jess. It was a lovely evening. Natalie, can I ask you something?" Jessica's tone shifted, becoming more serious. "How much do you actually know about Trevor?" Natalie felt her stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "After you left, Brandon mentioned that Trevor looked familiar. He could not place it at first, but this morning he figured it out." "Natalie, do you know who Trevor Hayes actually is?" "He works in technology consulting," Natalie said slowly, dread building in her chest. Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Brandon just sent me an article. I am forwarding it to you now. Call me after you read it." The line went dead. Seconds later, a notification appeared on Natalie's phone. She opened the attachment with shaking hands. The headline made her heart stop. Tech entrepreneur Trevor Hayes announces temporary step back from Hayes Digital Solutions. Below was a photo of Trevor, but not the casual, approachable man she had spent the past week with. This Trevor wore an expensive suit and stood in front of a modern office building, his expression confident and commanding. The article described him as the founder and CEO of Hayes Digital Solutions, one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity firms in the Pacific Northwest. Valued at over $200 million, Natalie read through the article in growing disbelief. Trevor had founded the company 6 years ago after developing revolutionary encryption software. He had been featured in technology magazines, spoken at international conferences, and was considered one of Seattle's most eligible bachelors. The article mentioned his recent decision to take a sabbatical from daily operations, citing burnout and a need for personal reflection. The date of the announcement was 2 weeks ago. Right before he had walked into that bookstore cafe and offered to be her pretend boyfriend, Natalie set her phone down with trembling hands. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. His vague answers about his work, his polished confidence with her family, the way he seemed to navigate social situations with practiced ease. Trevor Hayes was not just some consultant looking for a break from his life. He was a millionaire CEO who had apparently been hiding his entire identity from her. Her phone rang again. "Jessica. Ben, did you know?" her sister asked immediately. "No, I had no idea." Natalie's voice sounded hollow to her own ears. "He told me he worked in technology consulting. He never mentioned owning a company or being wealthy or any of this." "Natalie, why would someone like that agree to pretend to be your boyfriend? What does he get out of this?" That was the question that made everything hurt. What had Trevor really wanted? Had this all been some kind of game to him? a way to amuse himself during his sabbatical by playing pretend with an ordinary graphic designer who had no idea who he really was. "I do not know," Natalie whispered, "but I am going to find out tonight." The confrontation when Trevor arrived at 7 o'clock, Natalie was ready. She had dressed in the black cocktail dress he had requested, applied makeup with care, and prepared herself for answers. But when she opened the door and saw him standing there in an impeccably tailored suit, looking every inch the successful CEO from the article photos, anger flooded through her. "Natalie, you look beautiful," he said. But there was something in his expression, resignation perhaps, or guilt. "We need to talk before we go anywhere," she said coldly, stepping aside to let him in. Trevor entered her small apartment, and for the first time, Natalie saw it through different eyes. Her modest furniture, her thrift store, art prints, her entire life that suddenly seemed so small compared to the world he actually inhabited. "You know," he said quietly, "it was not a question. My future brother-in-law recognized you. He sent me an article about Hayes Digital Solutions and its founder, Trevor Hayes, millionaire entrepreneur, technology genius. Seattle's most eligible bachelor taking a mysterious sabbatical." Natalie's voice shook with anger and hurt. "Were you ever going to tell me the truth?" "Yes. Tonight? That is why I asked you to dinner at Canlis. I wanted to take you somewhere meaningful and explain everything." Trevor ran his hand through his hair. The tell he had admitted meant he was uncomfortable. "I know how this looks." "How this looks?" Natalie laughed bitterly. "You lied to me, Trevor. About everything. About who you are, what you do, your entire life. I trusted you. I let you meet my family. I let myself believe that what was happening between us was real." "It was real," Trevor said urgently, stepping closer. "Natalie, everything between us has been real. The only thing I lied about was my job title and my financial situation. Everything else, every conversation, every moment we shared, that was genuine, was it? Or was I just an amusing diversion for a bored millionaire? A way to play pretend at being normal for a week?" The words came out harsh, but Natalie could not stop them. The hurt ran too deep. Trevor's face paled. "Is that really what you think of me?" "I do not know what to think because I do not actually know you." Natalie's voice rose. "The Trevor I thought I knew was a consultant who understood family pressure and wanted to help someone in need. But that person does not exist, does he? You are Trevor Hayes, CEO, living in a world I cannot even imagine. So who were you pretending to be with me?" The truth emerged as Trevor was silent for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was raw with emotion. "You want to know the truth? The real reason I offered to help you? Yes, I deserve that much. 6 months ago, I was engaged to a woman named Carolyn Westbrook. Our families had known each other for years. She came from the same world I do, understood the business, looked perfect at company events. Everyone thought we were the ideal couple. Trevor moved to the window, looking out at the rainy evening. 2 weeks before the wedding, I overheard her on the phone with her mother. She was laughing about how she did not love me, but marrying me made financial sense. I was a good investment, she said, a stepping stone to the life she wanted." Natalie felt her anger waver slightly, hearing the pain in his voice. Called off the wedding. It caused a massive scandal in Seattle's business community. Caroline's family was furious. My board of directors worried about the company's image. The media had a field day. Everyone had an opinion about my personal life, my decisions, my worth as a person based on my bank account. Trevor turned back to face her. I realized I had spent years building a company, but losing myself in the process. Every relationship I had was complicated by money and status. No one saw me anymore. They only saw Trevor Hayes, the CEO, the millionaire, the opportunity. He took a step toward her, his eyes pleading for understanding. Then I took a sabbatical, started going to regular coffee shops and bookstores instead of exclusive clubs. And one rainy afternoon, I heard a woman lying to her mother about having a boyfriend. I saw a genuine panic on her face about disappointing her family. Not about money or status or what she could gain, just real human worry about being enough for the people she loved. "So you offered to help me," Natalie said quietly. "I offered to help you because, in that moment, You represented everything I had been missing. Authenticity, real connection, a chance to be just Trevor, not Trevor Hayes, the CEO. I thought I was doing you a favor, but really you were doing one for me. His voice cracked slightly. And then I got to know you. Your kindness, your creativity, your genuine love for your family. The way you see the world and find beauty in small things. You've never asked me about my net worth or what I could do for your career. You just saw me? Natalie felt tears burning in her eyes, but you still lied. Every day we spent together, you were lying. I know, and I am sorrier than I can express. Trevor moved closer, but did not touch her. I kept meaning to tell you. Every time we met, I told myself I would explain everything. But I was terrified that if you knew the truth, you would see me differently. That what we were building would be contaminated by money and expectations and all the things that have ruined every other relationship I have tried to have. So when were you going to tell me? After we had been dating for real for months? Years? Never? Tonight, Trevor said firmly. I swear to you, Natalie. Tonight I was going to take you to dinner and tell you everything. Show you who I really am. The good and the complicated and the messy. And then ask if you could see past the money and the company to the person I am when I am with you. The impossible choice, Natalie sank onto her couch, her mind reeling. Part of her understood his reasoning. She had seen enough news stories about wealthy people being used and manipulated to recognize the genuine fear in his explanation. But understanding did not erase the betrayal. I need you to leave, she said quietly. Natalie, please. Let me take you to dinner. Let me explain everything properly. I have reservations at Canlis. I was going to show you my real life, introduce you to that world, and let you decide if you could accept all of it. I cannot do this right now, Trevor. I need time to think. To process all of this. She looked up at him, tears finally spilling over. You made me believe in something. In you, in us, in the possibility that someone could see me and want to know me without pretense. But it was all built on a lie. Not all of it, Trevor said desperately. The feelings were real. Natalie, I am falling for you. That is the truest thing I have said in years. Am I supposed to believe anything you say now? The question hung in the air between them. Trevor pulled out his phone and set it on the coffee table. My entire life is on this device. Banking apps showing exactly how much money I have. Photos from company events and business trips. Text messages from my board members and family. Take it. Look through everything. See the life I was trying to escape and the person I was before I met you. Then decide if the Trevor you have gotten to know over the past week is real or fiction. Natalie stared at the phone but did not touch it. That is not the point. Then what is the point? Tell me how to fix this. I do not know if you can. Natalie stood, wrapping her arms around herself. Please go, Trevor. I will call you when I am ready to talk. If I am ready to talk. For a moment, it looked like Trevor might argue, might plead his case further. But then he nodded slowly, picked up his phone, and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. I meant what I said last night. Every word. You are extraordinary, Natalie Chen. Whether you believe that came from Trevor the consultant or Trevor the CEO, it is the truth. And I will wait as long as it takes for you to decide if you can forgive me. Then he was gone, leaving Natalie alone in her apartment with tears streaming down her face and her heart breaking for a relationship that had never been. Quite real, and yet had felt more genuine than anything she had ever known. Seeking wisdom. 2 days passed in a blur of work and sleepless nights. Natalie avoided her family's calls, unable to face questions about Trevor. She threw herself into design projects, trying to lose herself in color palettes and typography. But her mind kept drifting back to rain-soaked walks through Pike Place Market, coffee shop conversations, and the way Trevor's eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. On Tuesday evening, she finally answered when her grandmother called. Natalie, my darling girl, your mother tells me you have been avoiding everyone. Come have tea with me tomorrow afternoon. It was not a request. Natalie found herself at her grandmother's small but elegant apartment Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Settling into the familiar comfort of Margaret's kitchen, her grandmother poured tea with practiced grace, saying nothing until they were both seated at the small table by the window. "Tell me what is troubling you," Margaret said simply. The whole story came pouring out. The initial lie, Trevor's offer, the week of getting to know each other, the engagement party, and finally the devastating discovery of who he really was. Natalie cried as she explained how betrayed she felt, how confused, how angry at herself for falling for someone who had lied from the very beginning. Margaret listened without interruption, her wise eyes never leaving Natalie's face. When the story was finished, she sipped her tea thoughtfully. "Let me tell you something about your grandfather," she said finally. "When I met him, he told me he was a simple shopkeeper. We courted for months before I discovered he actually owned 3 successful stores and came from a wealthy family. I was furious, much like you are now." Natalie looked up in surprise. "I never knew that. Your grandfather was terrified that people only saw his money, not his heart. So he pretended to be less than he was, hoping someone would love him for himself." Margaret smiled sadly. "I made him work very hard to earn back my trust. But eventually, I realized that the man who courted me in modest restaurants and took long walks through the city was the same man who happened to own those stores. His wealth did not define him. His character did, but Grandmother Trevor lied to me. How can I trust anything he said? Did he lie about his feelings? About who he is as a person? Or did he simply omit details about his bank account?" Margaret reached across the table, taking Natalie's hand. "I am not excusing his deception. He should have been honest from the beginning. But I saw how he looked at you at the party. I saw how you looked at him. That was not pretense, my darling. That was 2 people finding something real in each other." "What did you talk about in the garden that night?" Natalie asked. "I asked him if he was prepared to honor your heart. He told me that knowing you had reminded him what it meant to truly see another person and be seen in return. He said you made him want to be the best version of himself." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Those are not the words of a man playing games. Those are the words of someone who has found something precious and is terrified of losing it." The decision. Natalie spent the drive home thinking about her grandmother's words. She thought about the Trevor she had gotten to know over the past week and a half, his kindness toward her family, the way he listened when she talked about her work, how he remembered small details and brought her grandmother's favorite flowers. That evening, she finally opened her laptop and searched for information about Hayes Digital Solutions. She found articles about Trevor's innovative work in cybersecurity, interviews where he discussed his passion for protecting people's digital privacy, and testimonials from employees who described him as a demanding but fair boss who genuinely cared about his team. She found photos from charity events he had attended, causes he supported quietly without seeking publicity. She discovered a scholarship fund he had created for students from low income backgrounds pursuing technology degrees. The picture that emerged was of a man who had achieved tremendous success but had not let it corrupt his values, someone who used his wealth to help others but did not define himself by it. Her phone buzzed. A message from Trevor, his first since she had asked him to leave. "I know you asked for space, and I am respecting that, but I need you to know that I canceled my sabbatical. I am returning to full-time work at the company next week. Being away was supposed to help me find myself again, but I already found what I was looking for. I found it in a bookstore café with a woman who was brave enough to be vulnerable and kind enough to trust a stranger. Whatever you decide about us, thank you for reminding me who I wanted to be." Natalie read the message 3 times, her heart aching. She picked up her phone and made a call before she could talk herself out of it. "Trevor, can you meet me tomorrow? There is something I need to say." The real beginning, they met at the same bookstore cafe where this entire impossible situation had begun. Trevor arrived first, sitting in the same booth, looking nervous in a way that made him seem younger and more vulnerable. Natalie slid into the seat across from him, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. "I have been thinking a lot about truth and lies," Natalie began. "About what really matters in getting to know someone. You lied about your job title and your financial status. Those were significant omissions, and they hurt." Trevor nodded, not defending himself, just listening. But you did not lie about the important things. You did not lie about your values or your character or how you felt. The Trevor who walked through Pike Place Market with me, who charmed my grandmother, who kissed me in my hallway, that person was real. Right, that was the most real I have been in years, Trevor said quietly. Maybe ever. I talked to my grandmother. She told me about my grandfather and how he hid his success when they first met. She said I needed to decide whether your wealth defines you or whether your character does. What did you decide? Natalie took a deep breath. I decided that I am still angry you lied. I decided that rebuilding trust is going to take time and honesty and patience. But I also decided that what we found together is worth fighting for. The man I fell for exists, whether he is a consultant or a CEO. And I want to know that man better. The real him, with all the complications and money and pressure that comes with your actual life. Trevor's eyes shone with unshed tears. You have no idea what it means to hear you say that. I have conditions, Natalie continued. Complete honesty from now on. About everything. No more omissions, no more protecting me from your reality. I want to know what your life is actually like, the good and the difficult. And we start over. Real first dates, real getting to know each other, building something genuine. I can do that, Trevor said immediately. Anything you need. You need to tell my family the truth. They deserve to know who you really are. Trevor hesitated. Your father's going to kill me. Probably, Natalie agreed with a small smile. But if we are doing this for real, no more secrets. Trevor reached across the table, taking her hand carefully, as if afraid she might pull away. When she did not, his whole face lit up with hope. Natalie Chen, would you do me the honor of going on a real first date with me? I promise to be completely honest about who I am, what I do, and how terrified I am that someone as incredible as you has given me a second chance I absolutely do not deserve. Yes, Natalie said, squeezing his hand. But you are paying. You are a millionaire, after all. They both laughed, and the tension that had filled the space between them finally began to ease. Epilogue. 6 months later, Natalie stood in the elevator of Hayes Digital Solutions. Heading to the 20th floor for the first time, Trevor had invited her to the company holiday party. And after 6 months of dating, rebuilding trust, and creating something real together, she finally felt ready to enter this part of his world. The past 6 months had not been easy. Her family had been shocked and angry when Trevor revealed the truth. Her father had indeed wanted to kill him. But slowly, through consistent honesty and genuine effort, Trevor had proven that his feelings for Natalie were real. They had taken things slowly, dating properly, learning each other without pretense. Natalie had met his family and attended company events. Trevor had become a regular at Chen family dinners, earning back their trust through patience and devotion to their daughter. The elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning office space decorated for the holidays. Employees mingled and laughed, and through the crowd, Natalie saw Trevor speaking with a group of people, clearly in his element as CEO. As if sensing her presence, he turned, and his face transformed. He excused himself and made his way to her, taking her hands. You came, he said, kissing her gently. I said I would. No more hiding from any part of your life, remember? Come meet everyone. I have been telling them about the brilliant designer who has been consulting on our new branding project. As Trevor led her into the party, introducing her to colleagues and employees, Natalie realized how far they had come from that rainy afternoon in a bookstore café. What had started as a desperate lie, a stranger's unexpected offer, had transformed into something neither of them could have imagined. It had not been the story she planned. It had been messy and complicated and built on a foundation that should have crumbled. But somehow, through honesty and forgiveness and the courage to see each other truly, they had created something real. Later that evening, as they stood by the windows overlooking the Seattle skyline, Trevor pulled a small box from his pocket. Before you panic, this is not what you think, he said with a smile. Open it. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny book. Ow. To remember where we started, Trevor said softly. In a bookstore cafe where a stranger agreed to be your pretend boyfriend and discovered the real love of his life, Natalie let him fasten the bracelet around her wrist, tears in her eyes. I love you, Trevor Hayes. All of you. The CEO and the man who brings my grandmother pink carnations and the person who saw me when I needed to be seen. I love you, Natalie Chen. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be honest. For seeing past the money to the man underneath. For being brave enough to trust again, as they kissed, surrounded by the twinkling lights of the city below. Natalie thought about how sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most improbable circumstances, and how the greatest truth can emerge from the most complicated lies. Their story had started with pretense, but it had become the most authentic thing either of them had ever known. And that made all the difference. The end.